Get it. Great first thing that it would go live. The yellow card's already in full effect.
Well,
Welcome to the Backpack Show, people of Earth.
Wouldn't be the Backpack Show without a yellow card.
It really wouldn't. I have not. I went back and looked at some of our first ever episodes together and doing the Backpack Show, and I'm back and forth now about how I want to open the show because I like just rolling in with the chat, because people are like, they must have been chatting this whole time.
We were actually, though.
It's a little more accurate, I guess. But I don't know. I don't know if I like the entrance. I don't know. I think people show up when they show up, though, and they start saying hi. One thing I really want to stress, because I found out something yesterday that I didn't know. In one of those kind of like someone was here to watch Rob Hatch and I would have loved to have said hi to him if I'd known, is if we don't get a comment from you on whatever platform you're on, we don't know you're here.
No.
So sure, you can kind of creep on us if you want, you creepies, or you can just say, hey, and then we love you more for it. Who do we have on the show today?
When you said yesterday you learned something you didn't know, I thought immediately of Skeletor on He-Man because he's got this really good burn. He's like, I could write a book about what you don't know.
I love that you have at the ready a Skeletor quote.
People think I'm good at gifts. I'm not. I just have a very good memory. I'm like, oh, he said something perfect. I'll go and find it. So today on the show, actually, Rob Hatch, who was on yesterday, recommended that we look at Abdi Nur Iftin, an author, Somali-born American, who wrote a book called Call Me American. He has a new children's version of the story out now. It's his memoir. It's super powerful. We have him with us today. And we have Tom Terwilliger, former Mr. America, with us today as well. Look at Rob's creeping. Good morning, Fazia. We have another really author on today.
Authors here.
Hi, Len.
Fazia is an author. Len is
Where's
an
your
author.
book? I keep going the wrong way.
Tom's an author. Abdi. There's only one co-host here who's not an author, now that I think about it. Backpack Show. Get on it.
What? Your dad's here.
My dad is here.
And your mom's here.
There's Leslie.
And
Happy
Leslie's
Wednesday.
here.
Leslie, Abdi, our first guest, is a Mainer. So, Mainer alert.
Well, by way of Somalia and all other parts of the world.
Well, that's Somalia thing. He has a whole chapter about Little Mogadishu. We're covered. Listen, one little thing ahead of time. I want to draw your attention to something. This book is #1 overnight in 3 different categories on Amazon. You forgot to buy it though, and I know you meant to buy it. I know you did, but you need to come and get it. So cbrogan.me/attention. Get this book by Rob Hatch. And I'm not saying it because Rob's worked for me.
You're not saying that because he's here watching the show.
I'm not saying that Rob and I have been friends since high school. I'm saying that book's going to fall again. I am saying that it's a really good and useful book. I am covering
Triple H.
Paul Levesque. It's very important. But definitely buy the book Attention. cbrogan.me/attention. But by the time you're done this show, you're going to want to buy another book. And so I want to bring out this smart, wise gentleman.
Abdi Nur Iftin. Let's welcome him.
So, hey, Abdi, how are you? Oh, you're muted.
Oh, yeah. You're muted. Whoops.
You might have chosen to mute you or something.
On the phone, though. There
we go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Did it.
Oh, hi. I didn't mute myself, so I don't know what was going on.
So
I just said hi to Rob. I just saw him pop up. Thank you, Rob, for mentioning my name. So yeah, it's an honor to be here.
So before we hit you, I just want to say, hi, Guy. You have wandered into a business show called The Backpack Show, where we interview people who have interesting backgrounds to get unique insights from different people. So, Guy, you are talking to an author, Abdi Nur Iftin, who wrote a great book called Call Me American, which I had meant to throw up on my screen, but I hadn't done it yet because I was looking through something and I didn't get it ready in time. But I will. So this is a memoir that Abdi wrote about his experience as now a Somali American, now that he is a citizen of this fine nation. What made you? So I mean, it's enough of a thing to journey over to this country. It's enough to leave your home behind. What made you say, I think I should also write a memoir about this? I think I should write a book. This is important to me.
I think the main Well, okay. So the moment that I decided to write a book was when I realized there was not much understanding of the human side or human stories of the Somali migration, right? Um, Look at Hollywood. There's two movies made about Somalia. One is Captain Phillips, and the other one is Black Hawk Down. And and then the those stories circulate around the war and the destruction and malicious and killing and murdering. But I have not really found a way to see these stories sort of like humanized, brought to life, talking about the family, the mother who is putting her own life to take care of her kids, to bring her kids to the safety. And so those were all missing. And I wanted to bring those pieces together to show the full story, not half of the story, just the full story, which combines together, the beauty of the country, the culture, the food, and then the war, but also how young Abdi, myself, age 7, started to become responsible for the family, basically bringing water and food so that my family can eat and drink. And not only that, but also cultivated a way to have dreams, right? So by watching movies made in the United States, something that is kind of unusual in Somalia, but that shows you how the desperation of those of us who basically have lost everything, not only material, but also like sense of community, and there was nothing to live up to, right? But then how it becomes the only thing that stays in your mind is, or at the moment it stayed in my mind was, how can I be a full participant in this planet, not be invisible as I was, where if you die, if you get recruited as a child soldier, it's a one-way ticket. I would have disappeared and would have never been found anywhere else. And that motivation came, believe it or not, came out of these action films that this woman was playing in her little shack with a small TV screen and CVR and cassettes and most of them were actually Arnold Schwarzenegger's action films. And that has got me drawn into it. It's just like, this is so interesting. I don't know if I have any connection with these people at all, but I need to build that connection. And that was the moment when I was cleaning the spider webs, sort of taking care of the area so that the woman brings people in, and then I would just watch movies for free. I didn't even have to pay anything. And then it only took a few months for me to have a group of young children of my age to sit around me and say, "You're a great storyteller." And we like how you're telling these stories of these action films, where like I would just, keep interrupting the movie and say like, he's gonna jump off that wall right now, and he says he's gonna kill the guy, he says he's gonna run down that way, he says he doesn't like this, sort of it just showed that strength in me, and it brought that out with the support of the friends that I had at the moment, and that has been definitely the Kickstarter of the journey that I would go on, where it began as a nickname because my friends called me Abdi American, right? I wasn't
because you
even
loved American movies and culture so much.
Just that, yeah. I didn't even live in the U.S. I don't have any family connection in the U.S. My relatives have never been to the U.S. It's what, 12,000 miles away from where I was, different continent. Then the nickname I sort of like made a promise to myself to turn that nickname into my nationality. So it took 29 years of my life to actually be able to come closer to the dream, which I moved to the U.S. When I was 29, and now 35 years I have become just a citizen 8 months ago.
Congratulations.
So
It's wonderful.
that dream that started from age 7 has actually just become a reality. And and I live with that privilege almost every single day, but I don't ever take it for granted.
A couple of things. I think maybe people watching don't realize exactly how dangerous it could be at times to be like a fan of America where you were growing up in the middle of a pretty bloody war. So at a certain point, that put you at risk.
It did. When I was 20, that was the most dangerous because what I learned from the movies was a lifestyle that I liked, right? Like going to the beach, finding a girlfriend, going with a girl to the beach, just listening to music and dancing on the streets, just having fun. That has become, well, this one day I mentioned in my book, it almost took my life. Because 3 young men, when Somalia became an Islamic state in 2006, I almost got killed for that. I almost lost my life. It was they quizzed me. Actually, it was like a quiz. They said if you pass the quiz, we're not gonna kill you. If you fail the quiz, we're gonna kill you. So the quiz was based on the Quran, the book, which I have memorized, thankfully, as a child. And I passed the 10 quizzes that they brought forward. If I failed one of them, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. So that was one moment. And then the other moment was like they bombed the movie theater, they destroyed it, and then they have released statements from the authority which says if we find you with a music, if we find you dancing, if we find you dressed like a Western, if we find you hanging out with a woman that you're not married to, I could list like 100 things that were the things that made me happy now have been criminalized. And if you do that, you can get killed. And that is when the world has really become sort of like upside down for me. And that's the moment I decided to get out.
It's go ahead. I'm sorry, Carrie.
So the book Call Me American includes some really harrowing passages, and writing it must have been traumatic for you. I mean, some of these things, you're 5, 6, 7 years old, and you had to call your mother to clarify like your recollection of it, obviously, because it's different. But in doing that, now you're dredging it up for you, you're dredging it up for her, and she was still living there, right? Is she still?
She still lives there. I called her 1 a.m. our time because that's when they wake up. And sometimes it had a feeling of like calling from a prison, right? Where your family member is too far away, disconnected from you, and all you can do is just cry. You don't have any words on. And here I was with a pencil and a notebook, and I was trying to take notes because I can't remember much. On my childhood, my mother has all these stories that I needed. But to her, it was rubbing the wound. She would just say, why are you taking us back? Why can't you not move on? Why can't you just stop, asking me these questions because they're so uncomfortable. So I was, sort of like in between a rock place and heart service, right? Where like, what should I do right now? I mean, I don't want to make my mother cry because these stories, I'm talking about my sister who would have been 26 years old today, but died right after she was born due to the malnutrition and the famine. So asking my mother about those stories, she would just, the only thing that she has is sobbing and has tears on her eyes. And now I'm making her cry while she still lives on the same neighborhood where we grew up. She sees the things that she had seen 25 years ago, when we were going through all of this struggle. So that was really difficult. If anything, that was the part of the book where I thought this is very, very hard, and but I don't want to give up. This is a story that I want to tell to the world. And my mother, as always, stood by me, and she said, "Okay, I'll give you all the stories that you need." And then it would just become a dead silent. She would be talking, and I would be taking notes. And there's all these pauses that come in because she needs to wipe out the tears in her eyes, And so it's been very, very, very hard, actually.
For both of you, not just for her. So now you're reliving it too, and you're remembering things maybe you didn't before. And I know emotionally it's very harrowing. So you wrote recently a children's version or a young adult version of your memoir to share your story with younger people. And you had to take out some of those things because it's not appropriate for children to read them, but you lived them younger than they are now.
I did. The I thought if I wanted to just stop talking about my story because it wasn't really helping that much. I've been diagnosed with PTSD, and it's mostly childhood and teenage years when things haven't really been that good. But I thought I need to let others know what exactly happened. It might inform them about us. It might educate them about us. It might motivate them, and that is basically why I came down to doing an edition of my memoir that is for young adults. I took out a lot of stuff. That's right. Intense moments that the American children can't even understand. They can't at all, wrap these stories around their heads. But I decided to transform it in a form that they can read, that's easier for them. But I still have some of those really difficult moments in the book because I can't leave everything else. 90% of my stories is harrowing. It's very hard. It's just growing up, surviving, resilience, struggles, death, and destruction. And I wanted the American children basically to understand here was a child who did not have a house, did not have a family who supported him, did not go to school, didn't have playground, didn't have security and safety. So if you're an American child in the middle school or high school, and if you're reading this story and you put yourself in those shoes, I think you become more stronger and more hopeful in what we have here. And also it opens the eyes to um, uh, you know to the debate of immigration. It's not only that it's an immigration as a word, but there's a lot more involved in it. So I'm hoping that people really start appreciating the journey much better than what you hear, like the 20-minute episode that you can hear on the radio, but like in depth right now. What did Abdi eat? How did he walk? How did he run around? Why was he into music? What else do you do? Why didn't he kill himself? I remember one student asking me this question: did you ever think of like going up on a tree and throwing yourself off the floor? And that was a question that I have really never been asked, and I said, nope, I really have not, because I started loving life even more with the near-death experiences. I realized how amazing it is to be breathing and to be able to wake up one day and see the sunset, and then go to bed another day and see the sun, see the sunrise, and then see the sunset. It's just such an amazing thing. And
you
for
cover
people who
that in your writing, Abdi, as well. I want to break in. You cover that in your writing as well. Your writing, what's interesting about it to me is for a guy who was raised on action films and death, your writing has a beauty all the way through it. I thought at the beginning when you said, Somalia was known as the land of fragrant spices, and there's all this beautiful medicine and all that. It starts that way, and I thought, and here comes hell. Hell does come. Hell comes so quick in this book, but there are so many moments where there could be a machete and there could be blood, and there is a call out to something of beauty, almost poetic. I didn't expect you to write with that. I didn't expect you to write with that like sensitivity that almost made me think of like, the Sufi poet Rumi kind of snuck in amongst the talk of violence and your pinnings as that kind of an author who lived on action movies and all that. So as relates to this, Debbie from Women's Leadership Live asked the question, after writing this book, did you feel a sense of peace, or where are you now that this book is out of your mouth and into the ears of everyone?
That's great. That's a good question. I do feel at peace to answer the question, and here's why. Thousands of people have read the book. I got connected to people from coast to coast in our country, in the US and beyond. And I have been, and still am, absolutely grateful for the feedback and the comments of people who say, I have been changed by this story. Now my eyes are open to how vulnerable people can be, the struggles that people can go through, and the joy that is involved. So that actually makes me at peace. It's such a great thing to hear those kind of words coming from people who are reading the story of my nomadic mother, a woman who just lived in the wilderness when she was growing up and had no network, no connection. But now to see that our story is written and that her name is in the mouth and in the breath of thousands who are reading it. And when I tell my mother this, she still can't understand what I'm talking about, So people know my name. What did you do, Abdi, right? So, and then I have to explain that I just wrote a book and people love reading. So a lot of people picked up and they have read it. And that makes me really at peace, which means this story will remain on the shelves for many, many years to come. It's going to be used by researchers to find out what exactly happened in Somalia when Somalia's story really comes together in the next few years. Whereas right now, we don't even, have a lot of biographies written about Somalia. There's just not basically a lot of stuff that you can pick up. Like people wrote about the Second World War and the and the wars that happened almost everywhere else. That there are detailed informations that you can find, and we're hoping that Call Me American actually becomes part of that story that will eventually be able to connect communities and countries and continents. Because I was a Somali child who called himself American, so it connects, the world. So yes, I'm at peace. Thank you so much. There was another question. Was there something else that was going with that question? What am I doing now? Was it something like that?
There was where you're going to focus your energies now.
I'm going to focus my energy on storytelling because I realize how powerful it is in terms of talking to people and sharing this story as many audience as we can. So that's where my energy is going to go. I'm helping at the moment young Somalis who left Somalia or basically have never been to Somalia, were born in the US. I really wanted them to understand our stories, to talk to their parents and write something or tell their stories, create a podcast, write a book, connect to each other and tell these stories because that's what the world needs.
Add more voices to it. Abdi nor Iftin, thank you so much for being part of this. Please stick around. Don't go away. We'll bring you back for a little panel near the end. I loved having you on. Thank you. It is a really beautiful book, and it's a really dangerous and painful book. You have to take both into account when you read it.
If you have children in your life, like young adults or high school kids or something, get the younger adult version of the book. It's still plenty powerful. But man, he's amazing.
Well, let's make a really good transition to sponsor talk.
Well, I mean, everybody's really happy to have heard Abdi's story. It's a story of survival and hope. And I love, this is important to me. I teach my kids that life is precious and everything. And they listen to me, but they see friends of theirs despairing and sometimes going through depression and stuff like that. So to hear what Abdi went through without ever once thinking about suicide, it's so important. I feel like I want to share those stories with my kids and be like, whatever you're going through, you can handle.
Yeah. I mean, I think about suicide for like, boy, I owe some bills, my bar for suicide is so much lower than all the things Abdi went through. But one thing I also want to point out too, and he covers it in the epilogue, and it's also, the very end of the book and all that. The whole story also kind of points an interesting painting on for the way people yell at and complain and say all the bad things about immigrants compared to what an immigrant sees when they see this country, and compared to the way they value the country in a very different way than what people who are born and raised here who can take it for granted do. So it's a beautiful, powerful anchor kind of book for you to have to read. So Call Me American, go grab it. It's everywhere. It's the right book for you. And if you get so inspired, you should make a show out of it. cbrogan.me/StreamYard. Make your own show. Duck not included.
I wondered about the duck. I've never asked you, but why?
I have no reason. Well, because StreamYard's logo has a duck. Look in your upper left corner. There it is.
Okay.
So yeah.
But it's a green duck. It's like a yellow halftime ducky.
This is a little baby duck. And that's a mallard in the corner. I have a whole bunch of mallards 20 feet out my window right now.
Look, you always have your reasons. I just don't necessarily always want to know what they are.
You don't want to know the reasons. cbrogan.me/StreamYard. Make your own damn show because this one's already taken. We are also sponsored by a site made for authors just like Abdi. you write an important book, you got to go throw it up on a website. Everybody knows that, but maybe that's hard to do. And maybe, the tools you need to make a website aren't there. So you got to go to something like PubSite, pub-site.com. This thing costs $8,000 and it's for your authors who've written a very important book, to make a site. What do you think, Carrie?
There's a 14-day free trial. And after that, it's just $19.99 a month to have a crazy good website that's easy to put up yourself, even if you have no development experience. And if you don't want to do it, even though it's easy, they will do it for you. Pub-site.com. Authors, you need to get your website going. Go do it.
Yeah. So that happened. Sorry, I got a text from Angel Jambazov that is so out of the blue about something behind the scenes to the Backpack Show.
To share that with the class, or should we?
Yeah, hey class. So Angel says, "Hey, you got to turn on your AdSense and some of your other tools that you don't use that much in Google." And I did, and evidently I am now running a campaign inside AdSense and didn't know it. And I am running a campaign for a product I haven't sold for years. Like 8 years. So Angel just said, "Hey, how's that campaign going? And should I leave it running?" And I was like, I probably have like a $1,000 bill that I really can't pay.
Len says great story, and he's not talking about your AdSense story. He's talking about Abdi's story. Deanna points out they can set your site up for you, pub-site.com. Bob said what she said, and Michelle is laughing at you.
This is why we can't have nice things. Listen, I don't want to think about my sorrows right now because I don't know how much money I just lost.
Let's get Tom
I want to figure out how to come back strong.
I think Tom out here.
I need a mindset and a motivation, and I need a strong man to do it. This man's good looking to boot. Tom Terwilliger, how the heck are you, brother?
Well, at the moment, I'm blushing and flattered.
You're right. He's good looking. Let's put him up top.
Good plan.
There you go. I got to tell you, over the course of this shutdown, this pandemic, this disruption, my hair has gotten not only thinner, but a lot grayer. I'm not even sure I'm recognizable anymore. So calling me
looks really good, though.
It might be a stretch.
It might be the wrong sentence to say, but you're really growing into that look. I like it a lot. Some people fight it.
I'm just going to say that deserves a yellow card. I don't know.
Some people are fighting it, Tom. You look good.
It is interesting, Chris, because I think you and I talked about this not that long ago. It's just like after a certain age, it's time to stop trying to be that younger guy you once were and accept this. And I certainly haven't coined the term, but I've accepted it and adapted it, is the tribe elder. So along with being the tribe elder is a little gray, and I'm okay with it, man.
I'm working through my Google Images to show people something because, they have to understand that you're a man who's doing a lot of things. You've written a lot. You've done all kinds of projects. I'm going to talk about one of them right now. But Tom was also Mr. America. So Abdi was, they called him American all the time. Tom has these lats that would allow him to fly around without any jets attached to him. The back of him, you could see it from the front for a good foot and a half. You could hold 3 people underneath either arm, I think, in your Mr. America days.
Small people.
And Tom graciously went weightlifting with me one day when I was up in his neighborhood and was super polite the whole time and lifted light weights so I didn't feel bad. But you have to understand that these photos are 2 or 3 years old by now. But that Tom is still mighty and fierce and vicious, and you have to understand he's delivering quite a package of work in there. So, but I can't just love you for your body. You're doing a lot of stuff for the mind, and you're doing a lot of stuff for men and women. And you launched some new project called Come Back Strong. That's around the corner. It's really a week or so, or 2 days, or it could be tomorrow. I don't know.
Actually, it's up and running today. The summit is up and running. It started on Monday, which is really exciting for us because it's the summit. This Come Back Strong Summit has been in the works for at least the last 5 months or so. And I have to be honest with you. I was under the grand illusion that I could get this summit up and produce within 2 months. And it's taken well over 5 months to do it. And I think that's a lot of times, we underestimate what we can do in a short period of time and overestimate what we can do in incredible amounts of time. But I may even have that saying backwards. But somehow or other, it works. But it's been quite the challenge and really exciting. And it all really started from you know, with this pandemic hit and the disruption kind of all took us out, and the economic shutdown was having such an impact on everyone. I know, Chris, that had an impact on you. We've spoken about it. In fact, you're one of our, I love, in fact, perhaps my favorite interview in the summit is our discussion. You were one of the first interviews. And
it was my favorite.
Do you even remember what you said, Chris? I feel like you don't.
I absolutely thought about you first when this all hit, because I said, here's someone who's helping others in the business realm, and businesses are suffering today hardcore. So let's talk to Chris. Let's get him on and let's get some insights. And you gave some great insights. And one of them was how your business was impacted with all these corporations sort of putting things on hold. We're not doing this right now. We're not doing that right now. We're holding off on content consulting. And the same thing was happening with me, and a lot of coaches and mentors and strategists were also going through the same things, as well as small businesses. So I wrote a book. It's really more of a guide. It's about 52 pages, called The 7-Step Comeback Plan. And when I got done writing that, and it took about a month or so to really get it done, I had most of it in the can already. And when I got done with that and began to promote it and see how many people were downloading it, we gave it away free because we just wanted to help. We wanted to support, give people a focus other than what's happening, the negative. We wanted to, hey, here's how you focus on moving forward, staying strong, and finding a plan to get back to whether back to where you are or well beyond that, perhaps. And as soon as that was done, and we said, okay, honestly, for me, it was sort of like it's something I needed to do. I'm like, I need to sink my teeth into something. And I think that's something we all can relate to.
But Tom, for people who don't know you and the work you've been doing, like some people are meeting you for the first time and they are like, whoa, super ripped. But beyond that, how do you go from Mr. America to the summit? Like there's lots of things in between.
And I want to go even further back, if you're okay with this. This is a Coach Woodard question of all. Yeah. Tom was not necessarily a poster child for what you hoped your kids would do. I guess that's probably one way to say it. Is that fair to say?
I think that's fair to say. No question about it. Early on, my twin brother and I were always hell raisers. We didn't know why we were such hell raisers, and we were either joking around or fighting, one or the other, in class, even as early as 3rd, 4th grade. And it turns out, we were dyslexic and hyperactive. And, at the time, you think you're the only kid going through that. I've learned since then that almost so many of the great achievers that I've come to know and interview and write about have gone through similar struggles as young people, especially dyslexia. And but I was put into the special ed class, and as a result of that, began to create this story, you might say, right? The story that I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not like everyone else, and began to rebel even further as a result of that. And of course, that's very disempowering. All those beliefs and thoughts are very disempowering. So by the time I got into high school, which I barely made it into high school, my 2nd year in high school, I got my first Harley Davidson chopper. I made a deal. The deal, I tell you, I wish if I could repeat this deal again and again and again, I'd be a billionaire by now. But it was a 1958 Harley Davidson. It was kind of beat up, an old chopper, but I got it for $50 and a case of Schlitz beer. And I don't even know if a Schlitz is still around.
I don't even know if you can still get that.
Yeah, but it was a hell of a deal, the deal of my lifetime, And of course, I rebuilt it. And then, you're in high school riding a Harley Davidson chopper, having all these disempowering thoughts about yourself, but at the same time, already believing you're a badass. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough, but I'm a freaking badass. Excuse my language. I'm a bad. So I began looking for guys to ride with, guys that I could connect with, guys I could relate to. And of course, riding through Manhattan and stopping at bars that had bikes out front. This was in the 70s, the late 70s. You connect with some not such good people, you might say.
Yeah, clearly you joined the Shriners.
What's that?
Like a biker gang.
Clearly you joined the Shriners. Right.
That's exactly right. Shriners MC New York.
Where's your twin brother in this, by the way? Was your twin brother like, whoa, I'm going to go back to the library? Like, what's he doing? Or is he out there with you?
Actually, interestingly enough, he took an even darker path. He ultimately went down that same path as a biker. But was drinking a lot more and doing more drugs. And certainly I was involved in all of that. And until the day that the illusion was evaporating. And that happened relatively quickly, because for me, going down that path was really about the camaraderie. Hey, finally, people I can connect to, people I can relate to, the 1%ers in life, like I felt like I was. And I felt like this was a camaraderie. This was a brotherhood. This was where my power lied, right? And I began to realize then, to witness that it's not that. It might be partly that, but it's really organized crime.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't who I was. And that wasn't part of the story. And so when I began to move in that direction, I began to wrestle with that and vacillate over getting out, finding a way out. And ultimately, I did find a way out. It took some trauma, literally some blunt force trauma. But I ultimately was able to get out of that life. And, going from that to Mr. America was the saving grace. Getting in the gym, rebuilding the physically beat up, abused body, rebuilding my mindset was critical. And the gym, I often call the gym the strength of will proving ground, because not only does it test your will, but it develops it as well. If you're pushing yourself, if you're challenging yourself.
Do you have to get like a custom motorcycle after that?
What's that?
So do you have to get a custom motorcycle? Yeah, because like how can a motorcycle carry you when you're that big?
Are you kidding? Because you see some of the guys that ride those bikes.
You have to get your own sidecar.
It comes in the bike and the car.
So the day you and little Christopher go to the gym, tell us about that.
The day we went to the gym. He says I held back, but I didn't. This is one strong SOB, guys. We went to the gym, worked out, and he was like, I'm like, you want to try some deadlifts? Let's do some deadlifts. I can't remember how heavy he went, but it's pretty damn heavy. I was challenged.
Stubborn is what he was probably in traction for a month.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about how much Tylenol you could take and still live. But
so people remember
story about that though, Chris. You remember? It was we got out of the gym, we got back into my wife's car. She drives a little Audi TT, barely big enough, right, Chris. I mean, way tight. But it was a 2009 or something. And I happened to throw my gym bag, which had the keys in it, in the back, drop the back, and the car locked.
I forgot.
We're in the parking garage. You remember this?
Oh my gosh.
I knew there was one of those little magnet keys underneath there. And I crawled under there for 10 minutes, couldn't find it. Could not find it. Chris is like, let me take a look. And this guy, I'm telling you, the clearance was like this. I don't even know how you got under there. Within 30 seconds, boom, here it is. I got it. And he saved our ass that day.
That was an event. So I have such a dumb follow-on story that I'm going to skip for now, but it involves my underpants. But I will say that, and not Tom in that particular case, I will say that. So then, you do the fitness thing, you win the award, you do all the stuff that goes with that. I'm just fast forwarding the tape a little. Then, at some point you're not doing that because, you can't lift competitively forever. I mean, there's a ceiling on it all. But then you decide you're going to help people with motivation, with mindset, with coaching. And you've been at this in different forms and iterations for a little while, kind of working on the formulas.
Yeah.
What is the talk through the Comeback Strong Summit for a minute? Just kind of walk through what you put together for that experience for people, and just talk a moment about, what they're going to get out of this summit that started on Monday that they could sort of collect and get their seat into.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things certainly, over these years, and like you said, there's been iteration after iteration. We're trying to find the right formula in terms of where I fit, what fits. I've written a book called The 7 Rules of Achievement. That was the #1 bestseller on Amazon for quite a while. And so we took that and we said, okay, what are the real elements? And the one thing that we really came up with, especially around this pandemic, this setback, is resilience. I mean, we know that if we're going to get through this thing, we have to be resilient. And it's one of those things that might be difficult to develop on the spot, but it can be done. But it's really one of those things that if we look back on our lives in areas where we've had other setbacks, we've had other challenges. I was still at the height of the bodybuilding career, competing in the Mr. Olympia. And I decided to go mountain biking, went over the bars and fractured my arm, compound fractured in the arm, the clavicle, the ribs. It took me out, and it required some resilience to say, hey, I've got to find a way to recreate myself. I can't be that person anymore. I can't have that identity anymore. So what do I do? How do we bounce back? How do we come back from that? And everything else along the way. And I think most people have experienced these things in their lives if they look back at them and realize, hey, I needed some resilience. I needed some determination to get through this and to reinvent myself and to keep moving forward. So we looked at that and we said, how can we share stories? I mean, Lizzie, dozens. We've got 22 extraordinary stories and tools, rules, and strategies for coming back. I mean, just one, and you may be familiar with Mitch Axelrod. Mitch is an extraordinary coach who's had just the beginning at this pandemic was hitting. He had this massive stroke, was hospitalized.
Right.
While he was in the hospital, they were x-raying his head and discovered these tumors. And he had to have 2 back-to-back brain surgeries to remove tumors. Now, you come through that, and then you're coming back into an environment where economically you're not where you were. In fact, it's very little income. There's nothing happening. The will, the strength, and the resilience to not just want to give up. I mean, you have a stroke. I mean, it changes you physically to be able to come back from that. We looked at that story. We looked at your story. We looked at one of a famous Olympic gold medalist, Mitch. Oh my God, what's his name? Gaylord.
Mitch Gaylord, yeah. And Danny Baldwin, you got one of the lesser Baldwins to appear.
I had a feeling you'd be familiar with Danny Baldwin somehow. I just figured it's interesting about Danny because I knew all the Baldwins and I grew up. Alex was 1 grade ahead of me. Danny was 1 grade behind me. And but Danny wound up being part of our crew, you might say. And I told you, I was in trouble. We were doing all sorts of bad stuff in high school, and we really weren't good students. Mom wasn't proud of us at the time, but Danny was kind of one of our crew. So I know he's been the black sheep of that family for some time, and how he's been able to come back from, rehab and drug addiction and alcohol addiction. So we've got all these amazing stories to illustrate that if they can do that, if they can come back from that, not only survive, but thrive through that experience, what can't you thrive from? What can't you achieve in your life? Not only that, but they all share the tools. I dig down and say, okay, what were the specifics? How did you do it? What was your mindset at that time? Did you have to have people support, camaraderie? What was the financial situation like? So I wanted everyone to have that for the summit and listen to those. Not every story, is going to resonate with every person listening, but there are going to be some stories. Chris, your story is going to resonate with one person. Mitch Gaylord's with
only
another.
One,
Mitch
really.
And just the one.
And so we put that together, and it went live this past Monday, just the other day. And but we're doing something cool because at the VIP level, you can own all those videos, download all the audios, and I got to tell you, there's some extraordinarily powerful stuff in there. And you can still do it at an extraordinary price. So if you wanted to get in, I would love to have you join us. It's going on live. We're in our 3rd day now. We go to Saturday, but it's also a lot of fun. We're doing, I call them talktail. Like you go to a summit, you go to the cocktail party, you get to know, meet and greet. So we're doing talktail parties during the week as well, where you can get to know the different participants, speakers, myself, my wife, and it's just kind of fun.
I need 1 second here. Deanna says you can't say underpants and not tell the story, Chris.
All right.
Can and will, Deanna. Can and will.
So I was in Denver for an event, which is how Tom and I got to hang out. And Joel Comm had these events that he was doing.
Don't encourage him.
And what happened was this. So I travel pretty light. I travel with just my backpack, which is why the show's the backpack show. Because, I put everything in the backpack. And if I'm just going to go a down and back, so I flew from Boston to Denver and then Boston again, like ultra fast. It was just a down and back. I don't bring another whole change of clothes or whatever. Who needs that sort of thing? I just bring an extra pair of underpants. So now you know where this is going to go. I am at the event. The event is just starting. It's the first 6 minutes in. Well, you said it.
Wait, 1 second. Let me get Abdi back in. He needs to hear this. Hang on.
We got to bring Abdi back.
Okay.
We're just 6 minutes, 6 minutes into this event. And it turns out my underpants are in the middle of the floor as people are all walking around. And a nice gentleman named Mike realizes that they're underpants, not sure what to do about that, realizes they're probably mine because I'm the one walking around with the backpack with the flap open, and goes, well, and so he just bites a bullet, his hand on my underpants, which were clean, but another man's underpants. He's got his hands on my underpants. And he has to come over to me in the middle of a crowd of people. I am talking to people. I have my arm around someone. I'm talking. I'm like, we're happy. And he goes, I think these are yours. And he pushes his hand against my hand. And I'm holding my underpants like a magic trick. And then I just sort of stick them in. So that was it.
Wait,
that's what happened.
Stick them in where?
My pocket.
Question.
Okay.
So that's it. So listen, Abdi, welcome back. Thanks for coming. I bet none of you wanted to hear that story, and Rob was right to say.
Well, Deanna wanted to hear the story.
Bless your heart.
The rest of
Deanna.
us didn't.
Bless your heart. All right, so we're at all different parts of the experience. Abdi was talking about a harrowing journey. Tom's conference is about a harrowing journey. The alchemy here is that we can never let go of hope, and we must hold on to resilience. Abdi, what do you do still, even though you're in the much more comfortable world of America in some ways, to hold on to hope and resilience? What's your answer to that?
I mean, what keeps me going and be hopeful is life itself. I live with the daily reminder of how far I have come and those 20 times that I could die, and I don't even know how I survived and why I survived. So those are the things that really make me feel like something was involved, something has really been saving my life. I still can't figure it out. It's one of the struggles that I have as I work on my next books. Just what exactly was it? Was this a lack, or was this a divine intervention? Or was there something out there that really wanted me to get out of this? Or that moment when I looked, into the barrel itself where the bullets come out, and that I've not been shot. I mean, so those, and this is where it comes in. It's like, is it traumatizing to tell your story? And sometimes it's actually life-saving. It gives you hope, and because of that, I'm not laying around, just staying in bed and saying I got it. I'm safe. That's not true. So as you can see, America is going through a transformation, and I happen to be in the middle of it. Right? I just jump in. America's it's the country that we all see right now, and I've been reevaluating what can I do. How can I tell my story to be part of the good change the country needs? As you flip the pages of the paper, as you listen to the stories, you always find race, Black, African American, immigration, refugee. I mean, imagine for the last 3 years, those were the things that were bombarding us, right? Here and there, and I heard that over and over and over. And I don't think there's anybody else out there who can feel it as intensely as someone who is a combination of all of that. And I was, right? You mentioned an immigrant. I'm on that path. Like I belong to the room.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about refugee. I'm right there. Talk about Muslim travel ban. There I go. I'm included. It's my country. It's my, it's my nationality. It's my faith. And now we're talking about race. So that's a chapter we're reading right now. So I see America as a book ever since I came, and it's a harrowing book. Every page I flip, it's just it's traumatizing. More as people who read my book, find it really traumatizing, but to them it's so distant. To me, it's not so distant. I've lived through discrimination, racism, chaos, trouble, child soldiering, loss of sense, loss of community and nationality and statelessness, and being homeless and all of that. And I don't know. I mean, reading this new America to me, it's just more, how can I really be involved? And what can I do? And how can I use my platform to better the country, to change the minds out there, to bring the country together? So I'm not running around. I'm not a politician. I'm not promoting anybody, but I'm just basically telling this story that most of America needs to really understand that we're not a danger, that we're not, bringing so much trouble here, but that we love our country, the United States, and that I saw America as an idea. And I want to live in this idea with anybody from anywhere, in the world. I'm not here as a guest. I'm not a guest for anybody. When I came here, I didn't say I'm going to the country of the whites, nor did I say I'm going to the country of the blacks, nor did I say I'm going to the country of, of the dominant language or anything like that. So I am working on, basically, and this is sort of a motivation every day as I wake up to reconstruct America a little bit, even if I can be like, I don't know, 0.0001%.
No, what you're doing is so important, because I think a lot of people who don't have any personal experience with it have led relatively, say, sheltered or privileged lives because of where we are. You see and you hear about refugees as in the collective always. So you humanize the story because no one could meet you and think negative thoughts about you. You've come through so much. You have so much compassion and strength and resilience. That changes people's mind about the collective refugees because they're meeting a person and connecting that way. So I think it's important. I think you should keep up the great work. Sorry, I'm off my soapbox now.
No, you're good, Carrie. Thank you. Couldn't have said it better.
Well, it's definitely a comeback strong story. That is for sure. I was thinking that when I was hearing it, this is like the resilience and everything that Tom talks about. Hey, we're at the point where we have to talk up to our person of the day. That is sponsored by pub-site.com.
Pub site.
Yay! You can go there and get this if you are the person of the day. The person of the day today, Michelle, who is holding up the YouTube side of the business. And I loved her, oh my God, muscles on muscles upon muscles comment. But Michelle had like lots of intelligent things to say. I just thought that one was really super cute.
It did look like Tom had like a travel pillow sewn in under his, like, his shoulders.
and a suitcase and some other things, and probably a car. So thanks, Michelle, for being our person today. That entitles you to an apple just like that one. You just have to go to any store, purchase the apple, and then it's yours.
My soapbox.
Yeah, there's a lot of soapbox lovers in this show. Oh, good. I was hoping a feline would rush up on me like that. That was good. Tom Terwilliger, I have a kind of brief question for you as we get ready to roll out of here, and then we have one last question to end the show. Tom, when you look at the way that you frame your story, what do you most hope people take from the arc of your story? What's the you told a 6-year-old this lesson kind of a version of your story?
Well, I think probably that we're all capable of change. We're not stuck in a fixed story. When I look back at just one very specific example, and one of the things we use in coaching certainly is the ability to reframe any situation, any belief system. We can reframe it and change its meaning in many respects. I remember as a kid being stood in front of the class. They wouldn't do it today. They might in Somalia. By the way, I am so honored, Abdi, to be on the show with you and
Tom,
to get to know you just briefly. And I hope I have a much greater opportunity to be able to do that. Had we known each other before, I would love to have had you on the summit. So thank you so much for sharing. And
Summit 2.
It's just such a great honor. Yeah, absolutely. We will have 2, no question. But I do remember one specific story about being, experience where I had to stand in front of the class wearing a dunce cap. And, you can imagine the belief system that begins to surface as a result of that. And I've been able to reframe that when we look at the wizards and the teachers and even the samurai who wear the conical hat to funnel energy and spiritual conversation into the being. That's the way I've reframed it. And that I was in some way, shape, or form destined to be in front of the room to share and to give back. And I now look at my Mr. America platform as the door that opened that in many respects. Certainly, I could be doing what I'm doing today had I not had that platform, had that experience, had that credentials, you might say, but it has helped and it has opened the doors and it has made the conversation just a little more interesting in that respect.
When you're that jacked, people are going to listen to whatever you have to say, whether you have a title or not. They're just going to be like, okay, I'm not going to interrupt.
It is interesting, though, and a lot like the Black community has to deal with a little bit. There's this preconceived idea and bias a little bit that you're a musclehead, you're not smart, what do you know? And again, it's the same thing. We all deal in some degree with these biases, the preconceived notions that people have. So getting over those obstacles has been a challenge, and I love that challenge. But that's what we don't have to live this story. We can change the story at any time we want. The next chapter can change, the next, and ultimately the ending can be something absolutely spectacular, as it has been for Abdi, and I'm sure it's going to get even better, my friend.
That's a link to our show Friday when we have Mike Freeman on, who covered he's a sports writer who's covered a lot of things, but amongst others, the Colin Kaepernick protests and that sort of a thing. And very similar to what Tom just said, they shut up and play ball is the kind of thing they yell at professional sports players. And so for Tom, they'd say, shut up and lift, So we're going to hit the backpack question.
Right. We don't want to hear anything from you. Just look and that's it.
Who cares what he says? Who cares what he says?
All right. Most important question of the show is the last question of the show, which is what goes in your backpack. There can be a figurative or an actual literal thing. So you can put hope or resilience or, heritage in the backpack, but you can also put, your milk bottle or whatever you want. So the question goes, what's in your backpack? We look for a brief answer because we're getting ready to close the show. Abdi, you can go first. What goes in the backpack?
Hope. There's nothing more exciting than hoping, you know. So that is the word I would choose.
I like it. Tom?
Well, certainly resilience, but at the top of that list, I think what gives us resilience in many respects is love. You know, the love I have for my wife, for the people I share with, and share the world with. It's just like I feel that sense of love for them, and I hurt when they hurt. The second thing is you got to have a rubber ducky in there, man. If you don't, what do you got to hold on to? This is love right here, man.
Rubber ducky, you're the one. And I think that, you know, we like them on the show. So, you know, I forgot one thing in show prep, Carrie, and it just dawned on me now. That we didn't explain.